United States President Donald Trump has called on the country to condemn racism, bigotry and white supremacy in his most extensive remarks since mass shootings in Texas and Ohio claimed at least 30 lives over the weekend.
After these latest incidents that are part of a broader violent gun epidemic in the country, Democrats have slammed the president's divisive rhetoric aimed particularly at immigrants and people of color as emboldening the acts of white supremacists. Trump, striking at times conciliatory tone, called for bipartisan solutions to gun violence and communities, and El Paso, Texas, Dayton, Ohio mourned the dead.
The front page of the New York Times, a bewildered nation shaken to its core. The Washington Post, 2 cities, 13 hours, 29 dead, before that number rising to 30. A moment of silence at the New York Stock Exchange, with vigils held overnight showcasing a mixture of sadness, hurt and anger after a lone gunman in Dayton, Ohio killed 9 people at a popular drinking spot, including his sister. The suspect who killed 21 people at a Walmart in El Paso, injuring 26, is being treated as a domestic terrorist after writing a hate-filled manifesto railing against immigrants and a Hispanic invasion.
The shooter in El Paso posted a manifesto online consumed by racist hate. In one voice, our nation must condemn racism, bigotry, and white supremacy. These sinister ideologies must be defeated. Hate has no place in America. Hatred warps the mind, ravages the heart, and devours the soul. We have asked the FBI to identify all further resources they need to investigate and disrupt hate crimes and domestic terrorism.
Trump warned that the internet had provided a dangerous avenue to radicalize disturbed minds, while pointing to the glorification of violence through video games as part of the problem.
Open wounds cannot heal if we are divided. We must seek real bipartisan solutions. We have to do that in a bipartisan manner that will truly make America safer and better for all. First, we must do a better job of identifying and acting on early warning signs. I am directing the Department of Justice to work in partnership with local, state, and federal agencies, as well as social media companies, to develop tools that can detect mass shooters before they strike.
The chair lays before the House.
The Democratic-led House of Representatives in February passed legislation that would make it mandatory for universal background checks, but its progress has been blocked by the Republican leadership in the Senate. The president also hasn't escaped criticism.
You see a president who, in his first speech as a candidate for the highest office in the land, described Mexican immigrants as rapists and criminals, has been warning about the threats of caravans and asylum seekers who he's described as animals and an infestation, despite the fact that immigrants commit crimes at a far lower rate than do those who are born in this country, despite the fact that we are now in one of the safest cities in the United States of America. Safe, not despite, but because it is a city of immigrants. The president's language, his rhetoric, has produced the kinds of hate crimes that we saw in El Paso yesterday, but we've been seeing across this country. They've been on the rise for each one of the last 3 years.
As a politically divided nation grapples with how to move forward in the midst of yet another gun tragedy. The El Paso and Dayton massacres have taken this country to 251 mass shootings this year alone, and it's only August. There are at least 4 other mass shootings this weekend, with fewer dead, that are receiving less national media attention in the wake of the devastation in Texas and Ohio. And while the president has called for bipartisan legislation, the issue of gun control is politically divisive. It's also worth noting that in 2017, President Trump signed a bill rescinding a rule introduced by former President Barack Obama that made it harder for people with mental illnesses to buy a gun. Sherwin Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.